People tend to separate God from science. They say, well, atheists have their science and Christians, they have their God. They have their religion. When actually the word for science comes from the Greek word for knowledge. And one of the things we know about God is that he has all knowledge. The word omniscient, we look at it and we break it up, it looks like omniscient. Alright, so not only does God have all knowledge, but he speaks his knowledge through the prophets and through his law in the Old Testament. So let's go ahead and look at some of these things. Genesis 17:12 speaks of circumcision on the 8th day of a baby being born. And we look at that and we say, well, 8th day, there's 7 days in the Hebrew calendar for a week. Why the 8th day? That's kind of weird. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised. And not until recently in the 20th century do we find that blood clotting levels peak at the 8th day after a baby is born. So if you're going to cut off anything from anyone, the best time to cut it off is the 8th day. Now, in the ancient days, people didn't realize the importance of blood. You see, in medieval times, they thought if you put leeches on the skin to suck the blood out of one's body, or if you slit the wrist of someone and let them bleed out, then the disease would leave their body, which is very contrary to what God speaks in his law. He says in Leviticus 17:11, "For the life of a creature is in the blood." He speaks of the importance of blood, how important it is to life. It was common belief in the ancient days to think that the earth was being held up by something such as Atlas or a tortoise. As we see in Job 26:7, the second part, I'll go back to the first part later, it says, he suspends the earth over nothing. We recently find that gravity holds the earth in its place. The time-space continuum holds the earth where it is, not a tortoise, not Atlas. Recently, we find that stars emit radio waves, high-pitched frequencies, and Job tells us of these frequencies in 38:7, while the morning stars sang together. Well, what could he be talking about? Singing together? The stars don't sing, obviously, but they do emit radio waves, high-pitched frequencies. People used to think that the winds would come from the corners of the earth, and we see in Ecclesiastes 6, the wind blows to the south and then turns to the north. We didn't figure that the wind had cycles until extremely recently. Psalm 8:8 reads, "The birds of the air and the fish of the sea, all that swim, the paths of the sea." Well, what could he mean by paths? Does an expanse of water have paths? We look at a lake and we don't think automatically, oh, that has paths. Well, what else could he be talking about than ocean currents? Isaiah 40:22 reads, "He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth." Now, people back then used to think that the earth was a flat square, but Isaiah claims that it's a circle or a sphere. Now, I promised you I'd come back to Job 26:7, so he spreads out the northern skies over empty space. He spreads them out. In Job 37:18, it says, "Can you join him in the spreading out of the skies?" Isaiah 22, come back to this one again, he says, "He stretches out the heavens like a canopy. He spreads them out like a tent to live in." And in Jeremiah 10:12, he says, "And stretches out the heavens by his understanding." We barely figured out that the universe is actually expanding. We look at the northern skies, we look at the heavens, and we see stars, we see stagnation. When actually his word proclaims that God is spreading them out, he's stretching them like a tent. Now, you can accept all of what I just said, you can accept none of what I just said. Because, yeah, I understand that it might be a stretch for you to believe that when David's talking about the waves of the ocean, he's talking about ocean currents. Or when in Ecclesiastes, where King Solomon's talking about how the wind goes north and south, he's just talking about how the wind goes everywhere, and not that it actually has wind cycles. You don't have to accept my personal beliefs, but I believe that God proclaims science throughout his word.